So I have my helper Charles here. He's a huge help. So I'm going to show you the simplest, easiest way to start with sourdough. There's 5 ingredients. It's in one bowl, no mixture required. It's no knead. It's just so simple and it's always delicious. So starting out, why would we need to grind our wheat? This is kind of a tricky one because a wheat grinder is kind of expensive. But the benefits of grinding your wheat versus buying store-bought flour are huge, because when you buy store-bought flour, typically it's already started to oxidize and lose so much of its value. But on top of it, usually they refine it, so they remove the bran, they remove the germ, which is your minerals, your vitamins, your fiber. So when you grind your own wheat berries, you have all parts of the berries. You're grinding them up and you have the most nutritional value. So if you're gonna make sourdough, obviously it's gonna be better than store-bought, so that's a step up. But the next step and the best option would be to grind your own flour, and it makes a huge difference. Now granted, wheat berries are probably, the taste is different. It's a little denser, maybe a little heavier, but to me the flavor is so much better. And once you do it, you'll never go back. We chose the Nutri-Mill because it had the most reviews. And after researching, there was a couple different options that I was kind of toying between. And this one won my vote because I just loved it. It's been wonderful. So it's very simple to use. You basically are going to just take off the cover here. You're going to turn your motor on about halfway, and then your feed rate, I'm going to turn it about halfway as well. Now remember, we buy our wheat in bulk, but when you're grinding the berries, it's going to make double the flour. So if I do 1 cup of wheat berries here and grind it, it's going to make 2 cups of flour. So typically I make 2 artisan bread loaves with this, but today I'm just going to show you how to make 1 in this bowl. So Charles is going to grind my wheat, so I only need, how about you make me 2 cups of wheat berries in here, bud? So we're going to turn this on and keep it on halfway. Okay, so now that we've ground our flour, I'm just going to pull out the container. It's very simple. I give it a couple taps, and here you'll see I now have 4 cups of flour here. So starting out, you have your glass bowl, and we're just going to add 1.5 cups of water. And now I have my sourdough that I fed this morning. You can see how bubbly it is and how happy it is. So now I have 2 cups of sourdough starter, and sourdough is so great for your digestion. It helps you break down the gluten, and it's full of probiotics and prebiotics, and some of those, the probiotics will cook out during the cook, but the prebiotics stay. So I'm gonna get 1 1/4 cups of starter here. And Charles, I'm gonna let you add this to my bowl. I'm gonna scoop it out there. You hold the container and I'll scoop it out. How about that? And then I'm gonna use this, what's left in the bowl, to add more. I'm gonna feed it more, and I'll show you how to do that at the end of the video. Taking care of your starter, feeding it, what that looks like, the ins and outs of that, the simple version. So I have 1.5 cups of water, 1 1/4 cups of sourdough starter, and the next ingredient is Vital Wheat gluten. Now this is optional, but it does create a chewier texture. Your bread will last longer. You have a better crumb on your sourdough, and it's actually good for you. So I use 2 tablespoons of Vital Wheat gluten. Keep stirring, bud. Good job. Perfect. Good job, Charles. So now I'm ready for my flour. And when you're going to measure your flour, you don't want to pack that in. You want it to be very loose, and I like to spoon mine in, and I'm gonna add 3 cups. If you spoon your flour in, you're gonna have more air and a more accurate measurement here. So 1 cup, you can keep stirring, Charles. Good job. So if you have more flour, you're gonna wanna put this in a freezer bag and stick it in the freezer so it doesn't start to oxidize fast. And then I'll just throw that in any other recipes. So now I have this really sticky dough, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That's what you want right now. And we're gonna mix this really well. And then after we mix it, I'm gonna let it rest for 20 minutes. And if you do that, the gluten will start to develop, and then you add your salt after, because sometimes the salt prohibits that or will not give you as good of a stretch. So you're gonna cover it with a damp cloth and wait about 20 minutes. And then once you add the salt, it'll take away a lot of the stickiness. But as you can see, it almost looks like a brownie batter, maybe something similar to that. Just another tip, I buy these tea towels, these 100% cotton towels, and use them for everything sourdough. So I just dampened it, and I'll let it sit, set a timer, and we'll come back and we'll give it the salt. And in the meantime, I'll clean up my mess. So it's been 20 minutes, and I'm gonna cover my sticky dough here. I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of salt. And that sounds like a lot, but trust me, you're gonna want it. And I'm just gonna work that into the dough with my fingers. You can still see it's very sticky. Just make sure it's all mixed very well. And slowly you see the dough is less sticky than it was. Kind of coming together. So now I'm just gonna recover that with a towel, and I'm gonna let that rest for 1 hour before I stretch and fold, which we'll do in the next part. So it's been an hour, and now I'm gonna show you the stretch and fold method. So with every time you stretch and fold, it's gonna rise more and it's gonna be less sticky. So I start with this end right here, and I'm just gonna pull it all up towards me and pull it up, and then just fold it in half. Turn my bowl, do the exact same thing. So I wanna do all 4 sides, so I'm just gonna do the same thing. It takes literally like 30 seconds. Stretch, fold. Last one. And you'll see the next few times I do it, it'll get more of a shape to it. And then I'm just gonna kind of tuck it into itself after I stretch and fold it, so it has more of a circle figure. So you see now, so the first time is the stickiest, and with each time it rises typically almost double, and then it'll also get more like that dough consistency. So then I just cover it back up and let it sit for another hour. So I'll do this 4 times. Okay, so this sourdough has been fermenting in the fridge overnight and a little extra. So basically you can cook it anytime the next day. So it stays in the fridge overnight. It will continue to rise. As you can see, it's already doubled. And if you get up close, you can see bubbles everywhere. Or if you look on the side, I don't know if this panel, but you can see how bubbly it is inside. So now the next step is I'm gonna fold it into itself. So fold in, you see those big bubbles? That means that your sourdough is happy. All these bubbles. I'm just folding it into itself. And then I'm gonna pick it up, and I'm just gonna roll it into itself just like I did in the previous folds. So I'm gonna have a really tight ball, and that's what I'm going for. You need to preheat your oven to 450 degrees. I forgot to mention that. It's gonna get nice and hot. So now that I have a really tight ball here, I'm gonna take my parchment paper and I'm just gonna make sure I keep that really tight. And I have my ball here. So now that my oven's preheated, I'm gonna take my big Dutch oven here, cast iron Dutch oven. So while my oven's preheating and I have my sourdough bread right here, I'm gonna take the top of the Dutch oven and I'm gonna just fill it up with water and let it sit for about 10 minutes. And the reason is that when I pour that water out and put it on top, it's gonna create this steam inside the Dutch oven, which creates this beautiful chewy texture, and it does make a big difference. So don't forget this one step. So my water's sitting and I'm going to score my loaf, and you can use just a really sharp knife, but I've found that this is a lot easier. And I dip it in water before, and I feel like it actually makes a better, smoother cut. And I'm just gonna do like a crescent moon, and you can be as creative as you like, but we're just gonna go pretty simple today. And make sure that middle cut is kind of deep. Let's say about maybe close to like a 1/4 or 1/2 inch deep. So it'll basically release the air going up through this little cut I made. So my oven's preheated to 450, and I'm going to pour out my water. And I'm just gonna pick up my parchment paper and add it to the Dutch oven here. And then just place my lid on, and I'm gonna put it in the oven for 35 minutes. After 35 minutes, I'm going to change my oven temperature to 400, and I'm gonna open the door, remove the lid, and it'll cook for another 18 minutes. So if you're a beginner at sourdough, this part of the video is going to be geared towards helping you understand how to feed your sourdough, what it looks like, how long can you keep it in the fridge, how much do you feed it, all of your questions hopefully I can answer here. So right here, this is my active sourdough. You can see it's extremely bubbly, and I have a lot of it because I'm planning on making some zucchini bread tonight with that. I add it to so much, pancakes, muffins, basically anything you can bake, you can add sourdough to, and it actually helps your body digest it a lot easier, and you can long ferment it in the fridge, which is healthier for your body as well. So when you're working with your sourdough, you want to use spatulas or utensils that are wood or silicone, anything besides metal, basically, because metal can kill your good bacteria in your sourdough. So I'm gonna start with 1 cup of my active sourdough. And I have all of this sourdough left, you can see. So instead of feeding all of this and making like a gallon of active sourdough, I don't need that much. I'm gonna pour this into a glass container. I'm not gonna feed it, I'm just gonna pour it in there, and I'm gonna cover it and keep it in the fridge. So now this is called your discard. So your discard goes in the fridge, and I just add it to different recipes that I'm using. That way you're not wasting anything. And I'll add to this every week, depending on how much I'm baking. Now back to our sourdough. So I have 1 cup of active sourdough, and I'm gonna add 3/4 a cup of water. I'm just gonna mix that together. It'll have a very soupy texture. Don't try to add your flour first because it's very hard to stir that. Now that that's mixed up, I'm gonna add 1 cup of flour. And with flour, you want to make sure that you're not packing the flour in, because that can make a completely different measurement So I like to fluff it up just a little bit to get some air in it. And then I add 1 cup. I'm gonna mix that together really well. And I'm just gonna loosely cover that with just like a cotton towel or tea towel. And I'm gonna leave it on the counter. And in about 6 hours, it's gonna completely double if you have a healthy starter. So you do 1 part sourdough, 1 part flour, and about 3/4 part water to that. Now I have 2 cups. So if it's healthy, which I can gauge that by how fast it rises and how long it'll stay risen. So typically in about 6 hours, it'll be at the 4 cup mark, and it'll be nice and bubbly, and it'll smell just a little bit sour, but not where it's like, because then it means you're not feeding your sourdough enough. So you want to rinse these right away because they will turn into rocks. They will be so hard to wash if you don't. So with my active starter, I want to be feeding it every single day. So if you are not going to be using this every day, you can pull it out 2 days in advance and start feeding it before you start cooking or baking. And then with my discard, it can stay in the fridge for a couple months and it'll be happy. Let me show you. I keep a jar of sourdough in my fridge at all times in case it dies or I feel like it's not as happy. I'll just bring out my jar out of the fridge and feed it, and it'll be back to normal. So this is what it looks like. Just, it gets a little thicker. But here I have another jar that I've had in the fridge for probably 2 months, and I have not fed it. So you can see like it has this liquid on top, and it's kind of gross looking. But this is called a hooch, and you're just gonna pour this off, and you're gonna feed it. And might take 2 or 3 feedings to get back where it's supposed to be, but this is perfectly fine. So if you keep it in the fridge a little long, just pour the hooch off, feed it for a couple of days, and I think it'll be happy again. So you want to get a starter that is very old, because the older it is, the hardier it's gonna be and the less likely it is to die. So I have had this starter for a long time, and I have left it in the fridge for probably a year at a time sometimes. And if it's very healthy and very old, it will revive again. So I would recommend not trying to make your own starter from scratch because it's just a lot more finicky and it has a greater tendency to die faster. So I would find a friend or order from a company. I'll keep a link below so you can order the starter I got that is over 100 years old, and it's been wonderful for our needs. So the flour I use to feed the sourdough, this is unbleached flour, organic flour, and I just buy it in bulk, and that's pretty much all I use it for because I grind my wheat for everything else. But I have found that when I feed the sourdough with this flour, it works really well. It's very hearty, whereas if I try to feed it with my fresh ground flour. So you just want to make sure your flour is not enriched because they add a lot of additives. It goes through a huge process. So you don't really want that in your food. So make sure it's unbleached and organic. So if you're wondering, why should I use sourdough versus, a packet of yeast? Sourdough is so much better for your gut. Yeast is typically inflammatory. It does taste delicious and it causes a beautiful rise, but sourdough, you can get the same effect as long as you let it ferment and wait a long time. So if I'm making desserts or baking anything, I usually let it ferment overnight in the fridge so it has the best benefits, because the longer it waits between cooking and actually feeding it, the healthier that bacteria is going to be. So now it's cooked for 35 minutes. So I'm going to change my oven temperature to 400 degrees. And it's going to cook for 18 minutes after I remove the lid. So you can see it's risen and it's beautiful, but now we're going to add like that brown chewy crust that everybody loves. It smells so good. So see, it's a nice big fat sourdough loaf. I'm just going to pull the parchment paper off. So I'm I'm just gonna set it on this cooling rack and let it cool. And if you have the patience to wait till it's completely cool to cut it and eat it, go for it. Most of the time, we typically slice this whole loaf and eat it very fast. Either just butter. This is my favorite jelly. It's Smash Foods, and it's like a superfood jelly. We all love it. I buy it in bulk. And then, or honey with the butter. You can't go wrong. It's perfect with every meal. I make breakfast sandwiches out of it. You can also slice it and stick it in a freezer bag and freeze it, which I typically always have a loaf in the freezer so I can pull it out for breakfast, make it into avocado toast or an egg sandwich, something like that. It's just so versatile, and it goes with every meal, and it's so good for you. All of our kids love sourdough, so I typically make about 2 loaves every week, and that'll last us. I could probably make 4 loaves and we'd still devour that too. But once you start it, it's so simple. I usually make it on Saturday and then cook it on Sunday or Friday and Saturday, just so I know I'm going to be home to be able to stretch and fold it. But I feel like it's been a really simple method, and it's foolproof, and it's been a great recipe for our family.